The angle grinder is used to cut smaller sized metal objects with a more portable device. First, make sure you're wearing the proper protective clothing. This entails gloves, some type of hearing protection, and goggles. Mark where the cut is supposed to be. Plug the grinder in, then turn on the device. Make sure to keep both hands securely on the handle. The device will vibrate rather abrasively. Make sure to stay on the mark as you cut. When you finish, turn off the device and wait for the blade to stop spinning. Then, unplug the device and return it to its proper place. Some safety tips to keep in mind are to remember to use proper safety clothing to keep all body parts away from the blade. And finally, don't grind near flammable objects and make sure the sparks land away from the people. When fastening bolts, rivets, or screws, be sure to always pre-drill a hole. Use proper drill safety by clamping all your pieces of metal and keeping hands away from the drill. For bolts and rivets, the holes should be the same size as hardware you are using, while screw holes should be the same size as a screw without the threads. If you are using a screw, put a washer over the hole before screwing anything in. Attach the fasteners by putting in the bolts and tightening them on the back or screwing in the screws in their pilot holes. If using a rivet gun, open the rivet gun all the way and insert the long part of the rivets into the gun's hole. Set the thick part of the rivet into the hole you drilled and squeeze the rivet gun together until the rivet pops. It may take multiple squeezes.
The purpose of the chop saw is to cut steel and other metals. It uses an abrasive blade to erode the material quickly using friction at high RPM. To use the chop saw, first make sure that the saw is in good condition before cutting anything and that the blade is fastened tightly to the rotating axle. Verify that the type of blade you are using is adequate for the thickness and type of material being cut. Turn on the saw and slowly bring it to the material. Cut the material slowly, not pushing too hard, as this will waste the blade unnecessarily and slow the RPMs considerably. Clear the blade through the material and turn off the saw. Wait until the saw has finished spinning before you leave the workplace. Replace all the tools used to the proper location. To use the chop saw safely, wear the proper safety equipment like gloves, goggles, and hearing protection. Place the saw so it is not pointing at any windows, flammable materials, or locations where people may be standing. Make sure to disconnect the blade immediately after use. Also, be careful when cutting or bending, as it might be hard to pull the bars. Get help if necessary. The bandsaw is used to make straight, long cuts in thicker metal or wood. However, steel requires a steel cutting bandsaw. The machine can also be used to make large circular cuts in thicker materials. The first step to use this tool is to turn the saw on and let it run for a few seconds to make sure that it is working properly. Then grip the piece of material you want to cut tightly and slowly push it towards the blade. When making circular pieces, you can use a circle cutting jig. Do not twist the piece sharply because you could break the blade. Keep your hands away from the blade and use a push stick when making cuts close to the edges of your piece. Do not cut steel on a wood cutting bandsaw. Steel cutting bandsaws need to run slower in order to cut through the thicker material.